It's an honor to be here today, and John Hancock is incredibly proud to be the presenting sponsor for the 2014 Women's Leadership Forum. The insights and inspiration that are the hallmark of this event are why we renewed our sponsorship. I'm very pleased to say we have over 90 John Hancock employees and members of community organizations today. And they're here to experience this firsthand, and I would like to ask them, my colleagues and our guests, to please stand up. Come on. Thanks. As many of you may know, John Hancock is also the principal sponsor of the Boston Marathon. Today, that sponsorship unites with this sponsorship as we present this year's Admiration Award. Each of us has heroes, heroes who inspire us by their strength and by their grace. I have a new one. I think you will too. It's my honor to present the 2014 Admiration Award to Jessica Kensky.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you so much for having me here today. I'm incredibly honored to receive this award, although it still seems like I should be honoring so many others that have supported and cheered us along the way. Let me introduce who I brought with me today. First, my husband, Patrick Downs. I feel really lucky to have him be able to walk on the stage with me today, and his willingness and support to participate in this huge women's event. I also have Rescue, our new family member. Rescue, speak. Speak. Good boy, he's a little shy. And before I get started, I also am really lucky that my mom is here with me today, if you wouldn't mind standing. She's the first woman that I admired, and thank you for loving me, protecting me, advocating for me, and most importantly, lending me your dress today. So I was asked to share with you a little bit about our story. When people ask me to tell my story, I assume they want me to start on April 15th, 2013. But there's some background information that helps to explain how we came to be at the finish line that day, how this tragedy has impacted our course. My husband, Patrick, and I met 9 years ago in Washington, D.C. We were both interns on Capitol Hill. Running played a large part of our courtship. Evening runs around the monuments, sprints down 16th Street to Pennsylvania Ave, both of us exhausted but unable to admit it. The unmarked gazebo after the Jefferson, before the Lincoln Memorial, where we would take a minute to catch our breath and steal a sweaty kiss. We dated for nearly 7 years. We made it through multiple combinations of long distance, career changes, and soul searches before I moved to Boston in September of 2011 as a critical care nurse with 2 years' experience. Patrick was halfway through a doctorate program in psychology and we were beyond excited to be in the same city and motivated to pursue roles in the healthcare field. We were married in Boston by the following August in a beautiful outdoor ceremony where the weather gods blessed us with a glorious day. By the next spring, my husband had been accepted as a fellowship at University of California, San Francisco, and we prepared to make the journey west, a bit of a homecoming for me. It had been almost 7 years since I last called California home. I had worked the Sunday before the marathon on my inpatient oncology unit at Mass General Hospital. I wish I could remember the night before the marathon, but I have no clear recollection. If I had to guess, I would say I came home around 8 p.m. from work, stripped out of my scrubs and immediately hopped in the shower. Patrick probably had prepared something for dinner and waited to eat with me, even though he would have been hungry since 6. I would have been tired from my shift, which tended to be physically and emotionally draining. But I would catch a second wind when I reminded myself that my alarm clock would not be going off the following morning at 5 a.m. Patrick and I had looked forward to spending the following day together, Patriots Day. He suggested walking down to the marathon finish line since he didn't know when he would be back in Boston for another Marathon Monday. I was up for it. Spring was in the air, and I loved exploring Boston on foot. I had fallen in love with the city over the last few months. Dinners in the North End, shivering at frozen Fenway, the eclectic vibe of Cambridge, a city where people were proud of their roots and their teams, a city with equal parts history and flair. The morning of the marathon is much more clear. We agreed that we couldn't be seen running outside unless we were actually in the race, and we went to the gym instead. We both ran the Boston Marathon in 2005, before we'd even met. I was a bandit, and Patrick was a BC senior with a neighbor that snagged him a bib number. We loved the challenge of the race, the support of the spectators, and the celebration that seemed to unite each runner with the crowd. In particular, Patrick loved cheering for the underdogs, the ones that wouldn't cross the finish line in 2 hours, the ones that when you watched them, you thought to yourself, wow, they are running 26.2 miles. We decided to take our time and plan our arrival around the 4-hour mark, when the more elite runners would be showered and home, and the real people would need us to cheer them in. I quickly realized that my outfit was a little too optimistic for that day. The sun was out, but it wasn't that warm. I ran back up the stairs to our apartment to change, taking the steps 2 at a time until I reached the 3rd floor. Little did I know that would be the last time I would fly up steps, the last time I would walk in the door of the first home we shared as husband and wife. I remember holding hands and walking up Concord Ave. I remember being in a really good mood. I might have even skipped a little. Riding the T together on a weekend or a holiday was a special treat and completely different from my experience of my early morning commute to MGH. There was a mix of passengers and everyone was facing each other, engaged in conversation, and there was an energetic mood in the air. We walked through the public gardens and past the Swan Bridge where Patrick had proposed several months earlier. I had not lived in Boston long, but the city was already full of memories. Near the finish line, we chatted with some people, offered to take some photos for a group that had just finished the race. I remember they were holding up a flag from their home country, but I can't seem to remember from where. Finally, I settled in behind Patrick, my hands resting on his shoulders, on my tippy toes, trying to gain some more height to see the runners coming in, as we were in the back of the crowd. The announcer was loud and encouraging everyone to cheer louder. I closed my eyes and felt the sun on my face. This may sound trite or convenient, but this part is completely true. I thought to myself, I am so happy. My life is perfect. I love my husband, my family, my job, our apartment, my whole life. For the first time as an adult, I was content, not striving for anything. I had found comfort and peace in my place in the world. In that very moment, I felt a strong force beneath us, like we were on a rocket. In that instant, our whole life changed. As an oncology nurse, I was familiar with life-altering diagnoses. The day the doctor says those dreaded words, "You have cancer," it changes your life forever. The nature of this beast was and is today different, foreign to me. Everything was immediately altered. pieces of our body and our lives gone without preparation. I was alert, but completely unaware of the severity of my own injuries, or the fact that I was on fire. I was preoccupied with trying to keep my husband calm and hide the fact that his foot was laying next to me. A shoe that hours earlier he had asked how it looked with his shirt. And there it was lying on the street. I was trying to make a tourniquet out of my purse straps when a man rushed over to me and forced me to lay down. He was yelling that I was on fire and began cutting my clothes off with a knife, or maybe it was scissors. Initially, I fought him a little. It felt odd to have your clothes ripped off on a city street. But then I surrendered, realizing that I was not in the best place to make decisions. Once my pants were off, my damaged legs were exposed. The man shouted to another man for a stretcher and called out critical something, maybe a number. It was some kind of rating system. I was rolled onto the stretcher and 4 men prepared to pick me up. Before I was lifted off the ground, my husband reached over and said, "That's my wife." One of the men replied, "We will take good care of her." And then Patrick looked over again and said, "We will figure this out." At that time, and even now as I stand here, we are still figuring this out. We have endured countless surgeries and over 10 weeks of inpatient hospitalization. Half of that time, Patrick and I were separated, healing in different Boston hospitals. Today, we are almost a year into our recovery, and most days we feel we have a great distance to go. For us, this is far from being over. The return to a quality or normal life seems miles away. We long to be on the other side, whatever that means for us. The uncertainty of the outcome of my remaining leg, the complications that come from living the rest of our lives as amputees, and the mental health and stability we work to regain. All remain unknown at this time. We still don't know what that fateful day means to us or how we feel about the bombers, terrorism, living with disabilities, life as an amputee. Personally, wondering what I will do for work, if I can and want to have children, how this has affected my sexuality, my self-image, and my role as a woman. What I can speak to today is the overwhelming feelings of gratitude, how our friends, family, community, entire city, and country wrap their arms around us. My strength and perseverance seems different in the face of this obstacle from those of my past. It seems more external now. Like the will to go on comes from outside of me. My husband, my family, my friends, my coworkers, my community, my co-survivors give me the energy and motivation to live and to move forward, to get out of bed each day and try again. On good days, I can see a future, a new life, and although it looks drastically different from any life I had imagined before, it still looks worth living. On the dark days, I'm enveloped by loss, the loss of a limb, mobility, our home, my job, our freedom and independence, spontaneity, simplicity, our future. I can't take any credit for our survival in those early weeks after the bombing. It was half luck and half skill, and a credit to so very many people. The selflessness and expertise of the first responders, the kindness and clinical skill of our doctors, nurses, and hospital staff, the support and advocacy from our family and friends. Living through this trauma has exposed to us so many different plights, struggles that once you bear witness to, you can't forget. They are now part of me, and I understand them in a very personal way. The faces of those that are in similar or worse situations trying to get by with less money, less support, and less education. The range of obstacles that face many disabled people, both local and abroad. The struggles of our returning veterans with physical and emotional wounds. Their difficulties are now all too familiar, their futures uncertain. The lack of adequate insurance coverage for prosthetic limbs, the inefficiency of our medical system, and lack of support when transitioning back to the community after a life-altering event. The importance of mental health and access to it. The fact that we live in a city where two men could build a bomb 1.5 miles from my front door that would lead to the death of 4 people, injuring over 200, and forever haunting thousands more. When our emotional and physical state improves, these are the types of issues we plan to focus our time on. We bring our experience and our professional training as a nurse and psychologist, and one day soon, our energy and determination. For better or worse, these are our causes. Please stay tuned, and together we will figure this out. Thank you.